Hello there, this is Ade Emsley, this is Denmark Street, and I'm answering some amp questions. So the first question is, the Rocker 30 is the most underrated amp in recent times. Could you make a one-channel version with cascading gain after the tone circuit? Cheers, mate. Well, I have designed a single channel amp. Now, it doesn't have the tone stack before the cascading gain, it has it afterwards because that makes it more filterable for the user, and you'll be able to add bottom and shape the EQ after the distortion. The closest amp to what you're asking for would probably be the OR50. If you could find an OR50, that'll do a similar thing. Next question. There is no Thunderbird 200 love in here. Only the best amp ever made by Orange. Bass and guitar slays. Okay, well, he's asking for a TV 200 Mark II. Problem with that, 6550s are not really being made well by many companies, so it is difficult to find good 6550s. Problem with that is they're also really expensive, and so we're probably not looking at doing 200 watt valve amps. How similar is the preamp section of the Thunderbird 200 and the dual dark 100? Just another preamp tube, another gain layout, same parts of reverb. I already own the Thunderbird 200 and love it. Trying to see when you're going to make dual dark 100s again. A dual dark 100 and a dual dark 50, both channels are 4 stages. On the Thunderbird, both channels are 3 stages. So you can pick up used dual dark 100s. I think you can get them for a reasonable price. We're probably not going to be making them again because the Rockerverb sold probably 10 times as much as the dual dark. Okay. This guy's asking for a TH30, but with the 2-stroke EQ built into the dirty channel. Well, that would have to be a hybrid to do that, because it's the 2-stroke is a couple of parametric active filters. Buy a 2-stroke and put it in the effects loop would be my suggestion. Can you make a 1x12 open back with a Neo Creamback so I could pair it with a 1x12 closed back and have the best of both worlds? Okay, well, it would be a very lightweight cab, wouldn't it? And I do like the idea of making the 1x12 an open back. I agree with that. It will probably have a different spread and a sweeter mid-range. So yeah, that's worth looking at. That's a valid one there. Here's another one. There is a lot of tube or valve types that nobody ever uses for guitar or bass amps. Have you experimented or researched using any of these? Also, have you tried using audiophile quality components? Most guitar amps are not at all hi-fi. I think it was Sun who used a Dynaco, or is that a silly question? Thanks. Well, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tube types that aren't widely available, haven't been made for years, new old stock. You can't really use them because you can't get them in big enough numbers to make a production run. The Sun was quite similar to a plexi circuit. using but it was using an ultra-linear output stage, you know. They were like a well-built plexi. John Entwistle used to use those for the top end of his bass. Okay. Can the Rocker 15 do high gain? Yes, it can. No problem at all. You've got 3 stages of gain there, and that's more than enough for most people. Or you can hit it with a clon up front, and that will tighten it up and give it even more saturation. So yes, the answer is definitely yes. Okay. Just yesterday, I've modded my Tiny Terror lunchbox and added a passive EQ. Removed the C13 capacitor behind the gain circuit and added a 0.047 mic cap that goes out to the passive send and receives a passive return channel. For whatever reason, any gain setting past 12 o'clock sounds super harsh, almost Rangemaster like. Real bummer. Any idea what it is? Okay, you're obviously crashing one of the stages. The Tiny Terror changes the impedance with the second gang of the gain pot. So it always hammers the output tubes evenly all the way up through the gain range, you know. That's kind of what makes a Tiny Terror do what a Tiny Terror does. So you've obviously messed up the gain staging somewhere. It's over compressing a tube, and you're squashing the top of the waveform on one of the preamp tubes, and that's not going to be good to run it like that. Fix it, otherwise you're going to turn your output tubes into frontline soldiers. What else do we have? I used 2 orange micro terrors for stereo. I run a master amp Mesa Nomad 100 with 2 notes torpedo, send direct out to the first stereo effects, then stereo delay, then stereo reverb, return stereo outs into the micro terrors. I can get from practice attenuation to full-on signal. I like the hybrid tube preamp in solid state power. Okay, it would be good to see stereo tube hybrid amp in a head box. Right, okay, well, the problem with that is you could probably do it if you had a solid state output stage, because you wouldn't have to have 2 speaker cabs connected. You could run one of them into no load. And that is why I wouldn't do a tube output stage like that. This is why I didn't do a Rocker 32 in a head, because you'd have to load one of the speaker outputs. I think that's probably a question for our other tech, who we call Stereo John. We call him Stereo John because he runs rigs very similar to that, and combinations of rigs. Interesting thing. Who knows what could happen in the future? It might be a good one. Another question. Hey Ade, love the OR15 and the Crush Pro 60 amps. My question is, where do the babies come from? Well, there's two possible answers to that question. I'm gonna answer that on an electronics side. Really, I look at what the industry is wanting. I look at what people are using. I look at what other people are doing, and I try not to do that. I try to do what's right at that moment in time for what the industry needs. I think that wraps it up. Over and out.